Welcome to This Week on Wall Street, your essential briefing on what matters most in markets. I'm Matt Weinschenk. I'm the Director of Research here at Stansberry Research, and AI has huge promise. We all know this. Figuring out the AI future will lead to major opportunities for investors. And we've got big news on the AI front the last 2 weeks, and we're going to bring in a true AI expert who's worked for the top hedge funds in the world to talk about it, so stick around for that. But let me set the table because I need to be honest. Talking to a robot and trying to get it to do what you want isn't the amazing AI that sci-fi writers dreamed up. With today's AI products, sometimes you feel like a wizard hunting for the magic words to make your spell work just right. But if we look ahead a bit, it's clear that chatbots won't be the final form of AI. Models, they'll improve, but what's even more important is how AI gets built into products and makes our everyday tasks easier. Now, the truth is, nobody knows how the business of AI will work just yet. That's one reason why chip makers like Nvidia and other picks and shovels plays have done so well. People are pretty confident AI use will grow and those chips will be needed, but when it comes to what AI products people will actually pay for, it's still hard to see what's around the corner. Now, right now, we're still playing with chatbots, and they're all doing basically the same thing, right? This is ChatGPT, Claude, and Google Gemini. They all look identical. They've all got a friendly greeting, a box for your prompt, a way to attach some files, and a drop-down menu to pick your model. Now, from there, it's on you, the user, to figure out what to do. Now, this flips the normal Silicon Valley approach, right? In earlier tech breakthroughs, Silicon Valley has been obsessed with user experience. They run split tests and try endless tweaks to figure out exactly what customers wanted, and then they deliver it. That's how social media like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, how they become so addictive. They're super tuned to what users want. And you can follow me on Instagram and X, by the way. But AI chatbots have developed in reverse, right? Silicon Valley built this really cool tool to do all these things, and they put it in front of people, and it's on us to figure out what we actually want to do with it. So it's a different story than we've seen before in technology. Now, the most practical uses for AI have so far been in coding and software development. Code completion with AI helps programmers be much more productive, and that's clearly going to grow, and that's going to be a real use for AI. That path looks the most obvious. But look, the AI promises that we've heard along the way have hit some roadblocks. For example, Klarna, the company behind a Buy Now, Pay Later app, announced it would fire 700 humans and let AI run its entire customer service. But last week, they had to backtrack. They did save some money, but they admit that service quality suffered and that people wanted to actually talk to real people. So the AI couldn't do the full job. And now they're looking to bring back real people to handle customer service. So we're all trying to figure this out. But for now, the tech giants are working on different ways to deliver AI to users and build it into practical products. On the investment side, we're all watching this to see what sticks so we can understand the future businesses that will grow from AI. Now, over the past couple of weeks, 3 big tech companies have announced AI news as they try to figure out what this future looks like. And it means big things for some of the biggest stocks in the market. First, it was reported last week that Apple will open up its AI models to software developers so that they can create apps for iPhones and other Apple devices. Now, Apple had an early AI win with Siri back in 2011, but since then it's fallen way behind. While Apple's worked on developing its own models, its progress has been slow, and the company even faces a lawsuit for promising AI-based iPhone features that it hasn't delivered yet. So part of the problem with Apple is that it's a clash with the company's culture, right? Apple's known for creating carefully designed, highly polished products that feel magical and delight their users. But today, AI is still very messy. Models don't do exactly what you'd expect, and even AI leaders like OpenAI have had to pull back products for improvements and apologize for weird results. So that type of development just doesn't sit well with the way Apple usually works. But getting this right is very important to Apple. After all, if AI fulfills its promise, our devices will become little more than doorways to access AI tools. And if Apple can't deliver, that will weaken its once unbeatable brand and competitive advantage. And this is not an idle threat. Last week, OpenAI spent $6.5 billion to buy the hardware startup of iPhone designer Johnny Ive. OpenAI plans to build its own device to bring AI into your life. So it's very early, but if everything goes right for OpenAI, it could turn Apple into the next BlackBerry. So we'll have to wait and see. But the iPhone has to work well with AI, and it's behind the curve. And this threat is part of why Apple shares have been dropping since January. Of course, tariffs don't help either. But by opening its models to developers, Apple can hopefully allow some innovation from outside the Apple campus to find a way forward. Now, even more news came out of Alphabet, the parent company of Google. Like Apple, Alphabet had an early lead in AI. The transformer model that powers large language models was built at Google, and its DeepMind division worked on AI for years. It even had chatbots similar to ChatGPT that it released too slowly, letting OpenAI steal the big splashy release. But now it has models that top many of the AI leaderboards, and last week, Google held its annual developer conference and announced a whole bunch of very cool things. Just to name a few. There's Google Beam. It's a special device that turns Zoom calls into a 3D video chat booth. There's enhanced reasoning and an upcoming deep think research mode. They're taking another swing at augmented reality glasses. Didn't work last time, but we'll see. And new video generation tools under the names Veo and Flow. And some of these tools are extremely impressive. The AI-generated videos now flooding the internet are truly wild. But Wall Street really cares mostly about one thing. Google announced it was adding an AI mode to its main search page. This tab will use AI to produce deeper, more useful results for users. Now, like Apple, AI can threaten Alphabet's core business. If people go to AI tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity to ask questions, that could mean fewer searches on Google. And ads alongside search are the foundation of Google's massive money-making machine. So with the announcement of AI mode, Google's tackling this threat head-on. Google promises AI mode will pull together deeper results, interact with other pages to do things like book travel, and use your history and email data to find the right results for you. So shares rose about 5% during Google's development day, so Wall Street likes Alphabet's focus. But there's a long way to go to see what AI mode can actually do. Now then, this week, we got earnings from Nvidia. And while there are all these questions about how people will use AI, there's no doubt that it will be powered by Nvidia's chips. Everyone's watching Nvidia because it really is a company that just sells to 4 or 5 major data center builders. And if they decide to pull back on AI spending, it's going to show up in Nvidia's results first. But Nvidia performed well. Revenues rose 69% over last year. Data center revenue rose 73%. Free cash flow was an amazing $26 billion. The company did say it would lose around $8 billion in sales due to new restrictions on exporting chips to China, but the market seemed to already know that, and shares were up on the news. But here's the thing I think you should notice, and that's that Nvidia called out a surge in inference spending. Now, Nvidia chips can be used for two things: big, huge projects to train new models, and then also to use those models once they've been developed. And using AI is called inference, to simplify a bit. Chief Financial Officer Colette Kress said that they're witnessing a sharp jump in inference demand, with use by Microsoft jumping 5-fold, just to take one example. Jensen Huang says this comes from newer reasoning models, which think for much longer than earlier models. For instance, the newest model from Anthropic reportedly can think about coding problems for 7 hours uninterrupted. So, in other words, model training is still important, but using AI, like in those products we were talking about earlier, is starting to take over the demand. And that's an important shift to watch. It means that AI adoption is picking up, but it also means that model development may be getting a little less important. Anyway, the coming future of AI will reveal some real disruption. Even for business models that look completely unbeatable a few years ago, Apple and Alphabet appear to know this, and they're positioning their businesses ahead of it. Nvidia is still sitting in the catbird seat with no competition and chip-starved customers. So for now, Wall Street's watching every product announcement and new model update to try and understand just where the AI users will spend their time and money. And they're looking for evidence as to how AI will generate a return on the massive amounts of AI infrastructure spending that's flowing into Nvidia. So there's a massive AI ecosystem developing with very different economics in various parts of the industry. Now, at Stansberry Research, we'll keep you up to date on the opportunities we see. And to talk more today, we brought in a perfect guest. Josh Baylin of Stansberry Research, formerly worked at Legg Mason at one of the top hedge funds in the world, SAC Capital. But since then, over the last decade, he's been working in the tech sector, putting things like AI, wearables, automation into practical use. So, Josh, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Of course. So, Josh, when we look at AI, I don't know, 10 years from now, are chatbots going to still be a part of this, or is this just like stage one, flash in the pan?
So there's no question that chat will have been our first foray into AI, right? In many ways, it was the democratization of AI, right? For years, you needed your own hardware, or you needed a set of engineers, or even a PhD to even touch some of these models. And so chat really put it in everyone's hands. It was interesting, if you listened to the Google I/O event last week, Sergey Brin actually talked about the fact that at this point, chat and some of the AI models have actually exceeded his own capabilities as coder, right? And so, yes, we'll probably look at these chat models as introductory and rudimentary in some ways, but they were important learning mechanisms for all of us to start to interact with these systems in totally different ways.
Since it's natural language, before this was the realm of coders, and this is the first time, this is the only way that a normal person could sort of interact with these things.
That's right. Unless you're super familiar with embeddings and vector math, I wouldn't imagine that you've been playing around with these large language models, right? These chat interfaces put a lot of that hardware behind the scenes and allowed us to actually touch it and use it.
Okay, Josh, so I'll put this out there. When I look at these models, I get a little skeptical sometimes. I see signs that progress is slowing. I think we've gone from the scaling era to the reinforcement learning era, and I see roadblocks ahead. Now, if you talk to an AI evangelist, one of the researchers in these companies, they'll say, no, it's just going to get faster and faster and better and better. And I think that judging that difference is very important for investors. So where do you fall on this spectrum? Are we just going to see faster and faster improvement?
So you may have heard me say this before, but AI is going to be the worst it's ever going to be today, right? And so what I think that means is that progress isn't necessarily linear and up and to the right. We're going to hit these roadblocks, but it is like we're currently in sort of the dial-up modem phase of AI, right? And so what I think you'll recognize in the next few years is terms like hallucinations, tokens, rate limits. These things will go away, right? And so as we become more familiar and as the models get better and better, some of these problems and some of these incidents will just sort of fall by the wayside as we get more and more comfortable using these technologies.
All right, so hallucinations can be solved. It's not something inherent in these models that can't be hammered out of them.
They can be solved.
They can be solved.
They can be solved. Now, how you solve them, will evolve with time, right? It can be easy to write long prompts or long instruction sets to limit those. But yeah, I think with time, we'll see fewer and fewer of those for sure.
So AI is a very disruptive technology. And usually when disruptive technologies come in and change everything, it benefits the smaller companies that are more nimble and they're able to try new things. And it's bad for the large companies that are already in charge because they're sort of calcified and they move slower. But in this case, AI takes a lot of capital spending, right? It's not an easy project to undertake. And the big tech giants seem well aware of the threat, and they seem to be moving to neutralize it. They seem to be on the forefront. So, I mean, will AI be an opportunity for the smaller players to disrupt, or will this just actually further entrench the big tech companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to see it as both opportunity and threat, right? And you're seeing that with all the announcements that Google made last week, right? This isn't something they're taking lightly, right? These are core monopolistic positions that both a Google and Apple have, right? Whether that's in search or in iPhones. And so there's no question these larger incumbents are going to spend the money and develop products accordingly. That being said, there are going to be some new upstarts that play very disruptive roles, right? And so companies that perhaps didn't have a role where they were dominant, right? You mentioned Perplexity earlier, have already started to disrupt a very dominant position. And so I do think it's incumbent, certainly on these companies to pay close attention, but also for investors to keep in mind where there may be some smaller disruptive sets of companies.
Yeah, it strikes me now that I think of OpenAI as one of the giants when 3 years ago it was one of the smaller ones. So it's kind of interesting, how fast that can swing when you're operating at the scale of AI. So when we talk about AI business models and what might come next and how this may be used, have you seen enough of that forming that you start to feel comfortable making bets on some of these other things? Or do you think it's best, Nvidia and the other picks and shovels, so to speak, are the way to play this for now?
Look, I do think that the picks and shovel, we're still sort of in that picks and shovels phase, right? And I think everybody has obviously flocked towards Nvidia and some of the data center builders. I am keeping my eyes on some other trends. Generally speaking, I like to look at developer ecosystems. And so a name like Cloudflare, which traditionally has been in internet security or deliverability, is actually taking quite an interesting role in sort of that AI developer ecosystem.
And so when I'm talking, we're talking about Google products, which are like consumer things, which is kind of what I see. When you say developer ecosystem, you're saying you're looking what the coders are the coders are using, what tools are actually being put in place for them.
Exactly. So I want to see what what the builders are using to build this next generation of applications, right? So again, back to Google's announcements last week, I believe they said they had 7 million developers or so. Cloudflare, which is only a $50 billion company compared to Google, I believe they have about 3.5 or 4. And so what you're seeing is, even though there's this huge market cap discrepancy, you're actually seeing considerable interest from the developer community and sort of a smaller.
And that's interesting. Back to our other question, that's a pivot from Cloudflare, which is it's still a large company, but this isn't what they did 5 years ago.
No,
but they found a way in.
Absolutely. I mean, they did distributed internet security.
Yeah.
They did CDNs. It was about, fast access to different websites. And I think what they realized with time was, while we're providing those services, we can also be a backbone of some of these agentic capabilities moving forwards.
And when you can find a stock with a story that's changing like that, sometimes that's a huge opportunity because people overlook Cloudflare, the security company, right? Like it's yes.
Yeah, and so you get this opportunity now where there's sort of a new catalyst and a new growth driver, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
All right, well, we will be keeping an eye on it here at Stansberry Research, where we cover all things AI. You can always learn more and sign up for free at stansberrydigest.com. Josh, thank you for coming. That's all for this week, and I will be back next week.